Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. And you'll never miss a story again. It all started in the quiet moments of a typical morning, when Marcus Hale made a choice that would shatter everything. At 8:14 a.m., as he stepped out of a coffee shop in a haze of mixed emotions, he did something so unexpected, it felt like an irreversible crack forming in the foundations of his life. His phone, the one that had held every family photo, every memory, and every reminder of his shared life with Diana, was unceremoniously tossed into a trash bin. Not a backup phone, not a burner, but the one he had kept for years. Gone. His heart didn't race. His hands didn't shake. He simply exhaled, dropped the phone into the bin, and slid his sunglasses down, as though shielding himself from the weight of his own actions. He didn't look back. The taxi waiting for him didn't honk, didn't flash its lights, but merely nodded in silent understanding. "Miami International," he said, his voice steady. The driver didn't ask why. The car pulled off, and Marcus knew he was already miles away from everything that had once been his world. Meanwhile, in suburban Nashville, Diana Hale still believed her marriage was intact. She was brushing her hair in the bathroom, humming to herself, oblivious to the unraveling reality around her. As she sent Marcus a text, casually typing, "Miss you already," she couldn't have known that everything she thought was hers was slipping through her fingers. Diana didn't know that Marcus had resigned from his consulting firm a week before. She didn't know that he had drained their brokerage accounts or that he had wired over $1.2 million into an offshore account under a fake identity. She was too distracted, too caught up in the allure of Trevor Maddox, her gym instructor turned companion. He was younger, more attentive, and shamelessly charming. She told herself it was harmless. After all, Marcus had become distant, cold, predictable. But Marcus had noticed everything. Every shift in her behavior, every lie she told, every night she came home smelling of aftershave she claimed was lotion. He didn't confront her. He prepared. For months, Marcus had hired a private investigator, documenting every moment of Diana's betrayal with photos, videos, GPS logs, and even audio recordings. He knew it all: the lunches, the after-work drinks, the secret texts. He'd seen her laugh in the passenger seat of Trevor's car, talking about him like he was nothing more than a nuisance, a shadow in her life. But for Marcus, this wasn't just about leaving. This was about disappearing. He had sold their house without her knowledge, leveraging his name on the deed and convincing Diana that they were merely refinancing. She believed they were upgrading to a new home in Florida, a gated community she had been eager to move into. What she didn't know was that the house had already been sold 3 days ago. The proceeds already transferred. Today was just the final act of a play she wasn't even aware she was a part of. A moving company, hired under a fake name, was already loading up boxes. One truck for consignment, another for Marcus's brother, who was handling the storage unit out of state. Everything else, the furniture, appliances, kitchenware, was being sold off. By noon, their home would be nothing but an empty shell, a memory of a life Diana once thought was hers. Marcus hadn't left a note. Not yet. But he had written 16 letters, one for Diana, one for each of her friends, one for her employer, one for every sibling, and both their kids. All sealed, all mailed. All would land tomorrow. As Marcus pulled into the airport parking lot, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Not his old phone. This was a new one, the one that would carry only one name, Tyler. The name he would adopt once he landed in the Bahamas. He smiled, but it wasn't out of joy. It was relief. No more explanations, no more lies. Diana could keep them. He was gone, and nothing could bring him back. Meanwhile, Diana continued her life, believing everything was fine. She spent her days with Trevor, the man who made her feel seen and wanted. He wasn't Marcus. He wasn't predictable. He was everything Marcus hadn't been for years. And for Diana, that was enough. Trevor had been patient with her, feeding her insecurities until they bloomed into desires. At first, she resisted, She had built a life with Marcus. But Trevor was persistent, flattering her with the attention she craved. What started as innocent compliments after yoga class grew into stolen moments, coffee dates, and eventually tangled sheets. Guilt gnawed at Diana, but she buried it deep down, convinced herself that she deserved more, convinced herself that Marcus had long since stopped caring. She had become something she wasn't proud of, but it was too late to turn back now. What Diana didn't know was that Marcus had seen it all, every secret, every moment, every whispered lie. And now he was ready to make his move. He wasn't just leaving her, he was disappearing. As Marcus sat in the rental car watching the Florida coastline from the airport parking lot, he exhaled, knowing there would be no going back. Diana's world would soon be turned upside down, but she wouldn't know it yet. She was still sitting at Trevor's apartment, still texting Marcus, still pretending everything was fine. And as he sipped his drink, he couldn't help but smile. This was it. There were no more lies, no more pretending. He was done. Diana didn't return home until the following morning. She had spent the night at Trevor's place again, telling herself it was only because she was avoiding the moving chaos. But deep down, she knew the truth. She didn't want to face the silence that always followed Marcus's absence, the silence that had long since filled their house like an unspoken ghost. When she finally pulled into the driveway, latte in hand and a to-do list in her head, she had no idea that the life she had so carefully constructed was crumbling right in front of her. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and everything seemed perfect. On the surface, everything was fine. But the moment she unlocked the door, her breath caught. The air inside was cold, hollow, gone. The shoes were missing from the rack. The mirror that had always greeted her at the entrance was gone. She dropped her bag, her heart pounding in her chest. "Marcus," she called out, even though she knew he wasn't due back for another 2 days. She moved through the house, the familiar surroundings, now unfamiliar, like walking through a dream. Or maybe it was a nightmare. The living room was empty. No couch, no photos, no TV. Just the faint outlines where furniture had once been. She moved upstairs, her legs heavy, her pulse quickening. Her jewelry box was gone. Her closet was empty. Even her desk drawers had been cleared out. She checked her perfume tray. Gone. It was all gone. And then she saw it. An envelope, taped to the bathroom mirror. Her name was written on the front in Marcus's steady handwriting. Her hand shook as she reached for it, opening it slowly, as if afraid of what it might contain. Inside was no sweet sentiment, no heartfelt goodbye, just cold, unflinching truth. The letter was brief. No preamble, no affection, just facts. "Diana, by now you've realized the home you lied in no longer belongs to you. I sold it. The retirement house we bought never existed. I fabricated the entire process to isolate your name from the money. The funds from the sale, the brokerage account, and our retirement savings are gone. Not stolen, but collected by me. I know about Trevor. I know everything. Your lunches, your overnights, the lies you told to my face. I hired a private investigator. He followed you, filmed you, recorded you. I also know the kids knew. They met him. They had dinner with him. That betrayal hurts more than yours. I'm not divorcing you. You can spend your own money filing the paperwork if you ever manage to crawl out of the mess you created. The rest of our possessions were sent to consignment. I didn't bother separating them. I kept what I wanted, sold what I didn't. The rest is someone else's problem now. I left letters for your friends, your boss, your family, our children. You're not the victim in those pages, just so you know. You can't reach me. I won't be returning. Consider this the last time you'll hear from Marcus Hale. P.S. I kept your father's revolver. I figure it was fitting. After all, you pulled the trigger on this life long before I did." Diana stood frozen for a moment, her heart racing. The words blurred in her vision. This was real. It was all real. Marcus had disappeared, and everything she thought she had was gone. The house, the money, the life they had built. All gone. She dropped the letter. Her knees buckled and she sank to the cold tile floor, her back pressed against the empty vanity. The tears came then, hot and uncontrollable, flowing down her face as she buried her hands in her palms. She called Marcus's phone, her fingers trembling as she dialed. But a voice answered. Not Marcus's. A raspy, unfamiliar voice. "Who's this?" the voice asked. "Where's Marcus?" Diana demanded, her voice frantic. The man on the other end sighed. "Some guy gave me this phone behind a diner yesterday. Said I could keep it." Diana hung up the phone, her hands shaking. She called her daughter. Voicemail, her son. Voicemail. She sent frantic messages to her siblings, to her friends. Each reply colder than the last. Wow, unbelievable. Don't contact me again. And then came the final blow. A photo message from her sister. A snapshot of the letter Marcus had sent her. Every detail of the betrayal, now exposed to the world. Every affair, every lie, every moment she thought was hers, out in the open. Diana dropped her phone and buried her face in her hands, her sobs filling the empty house. The life she had fought so hard to keep, to hold on to, was gone. The world she had once built with Marcus had crumbled, and now there was nothing left. She made calls for hours, trying to reach someone, anyone. But each call ended in rejection, in cold silence. The world she once knew was slipping away, and Diana couldn't hold on to it any longer. Finally, she managed to get through to her daughter, Lauren. "Sweetheart," Diana whispered, her voice breaking, "I don't know what to say to you." Lauren's voice on the other end was cold, distant. "I saw the video, Mom. You introduced him to us like he was part of our family. He meant something to me. I needed you," Diana said softly. "I needed to destroy Dad." Her daughter's voice cracked, and Diana could hear the anger in it. "That's what you did, and you dragged us into it." The line went dead. Diana stood motionless in the entryway, surrounded by the echoes of a life she had once taken for granted. She had fought to rewrite her story, to escape the predictable confines of her marriage. But now, all she had was an empty home, a shattered family, and a future she didn't know how to face. The next morning, Diana opened a letter from Marcus's attorney. It was official. The house had been sold. The offer on the retirement home was canceled. She had 7 days to vacate or risk trespassing charges. She rushed to the consignment shop Marcus had mentioned in his letter, but it was worse than she feared. The clerk explained that the items had been legally transferred, and if Diana wanted to buy anything back, she would have to pay for it. Her wedding dress, her grandmother's vase, gone, already priced for sale. Diana tried to laugh, but the sound that came out was more like a choke than anything else. She grabbed a few items, slapped them on the counter, and demanded to get them back. When her credit card was declined, and only her store card worked, barely, she realized what Marcus had done. He hadn't just taken the money, he had taken everything. The control, the power, the identity she had built her comfort around. She had nothing left. That night, Diana checked into a roadside motel. The room smelled like bleach and regret. She sat on the bed staring at herself in the mirror. No makeup, no ring, no home. Just Diana. Not Diana Hale, the suburban wife. Not Diana the mother. Not Diana the lover. Just a woman alone with nothing left to give. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Trevor. "So, Marcus found out. Guess we're both starting over, huh?" he wrote. Diana didn't reply. Instead, she tossed the phone onto the nightstand and collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, her eyes wide open, her heart stretched thin. Somewhere far away on a sunlit balcony overlooking the Caribbean Sea, Marcus smiled, a drink in his hand, as he watched the last piece of his plan fall into place. He had disappeared, and Diana's world? It was just beginning to collapse. 3 days passed. Diana barely left the motel room. The air was thick with the stench of stale humidity and microwave takeout. The blinds in her room were half broken, letting sunlight through in sharp, painful streaks, like knives she couldn't avoid. Her life had fallen into a pit of despair, a void she couldn't climb out of. She called 3 divorce attorneys, each one turning her away. The moment they heard Marcus Hale's name, They refused her case, as if his name itself was a death sentence. Your husband liquidated assets and relocated internationally, one attorney said, his voice laced with disbelief. He played a masterclass in strategic abandonment, and you want to file with what money? Diana's voice cracked, but she held on to what little pride she had left. I'll find a way, she snapped, though even she could hear the doubt in her words. She tried to call her bank next. Her name was still on the joint account, but the teller informed her, with clinical detachment, that there was nothing left. All authorized by Mr. Hale, the teller said. Transfers approved weeks ago. New accounts formed. We sent the notices, ma'am. You just never read them. Diana hadn't read them. She had been too busy living the life she thought she wanted. And now, that life was gone. By Thursday night, she found herself sitting on the edge of the motel bathtub, brushing her hair with a cheap comb she'd bought from a dollar store. Her phone lit up again. Trevor. She hadn't heard from him in days, and now he was the only person left who seemed to still have some form of attachment to her. She hesitated but answered. You've been quiet, she said. Kicked out, Trevor muttered, his voice flat, as though he had already accepted his fate. Wife found everything. My job's gone too. Can't even go to the gym anymore. People talk. Diana remained silent, her mind spinning. This wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't just Marcus. It was everything she had let herself become. A woman who was willing to tear apart her life, her family, just for the illusion of a fresh start. I'm crashing at my cousin's for now, Trevor added. But it's bad. Real bad. I'm sorry. She sighed, feeling the weight of everything settle on her chest. I didn't mean for all this to happen. Trevor didn't respond immediately. There was a long pause before he spoke again, his voice slow, like he was trying to choose his words carefully. Yeah, well, you made your choice. Same as me. Diana's heart twisted. She had hoped in some corner of her mind that maybe Trevor could be her escape, but he was just as lost as she was. She felt the last remnants of hope she had clung to slipping away, and with it, the idea that she could ever find peace again. Maybe we meet up, Trevor said finally. Talk this out. I miss you. Diana closed her eyes. The thought of anyone being close to her again, lit something in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or maybe desperation disguised as warmth. She didn't care anymore. Room 212, she whispered. I'll leave the door unlocked. For half an hour, she waited in the car, knowing she should feel something, but all she could feel was the slow dread of someone walking towards their inevitable fate. Trevor was coming, but she knew, deep down, this wasn't a reunion. This was the last act of a tragedy, and she was merely the witness. When Trevor finally walked inside, part of her still needed to see him again, to know she hadn't lost everything. But another part of her, the part she had buried for months, remembered Marcus's letter, the final words he had written. You pulled the trigger on this life long before I did. She opened her glove box and saw it. Marcus hadn't just left her. He had left her with something far worse, a reminder of the power he still held over her, even from a distance. Inside the glove box was the revolver, her father's, along with one last note scribbled on the folded envelope. The note read, Point and pull, just like I taught you, in case you ever need to protect what's left of you. Diana didn't think. She just acted. She walked back into the room, her legs moving slowly, mechanically, as if she were being drawn into the final act. Trevor looked up from the edge of the bed, and that familiar smirk on his face. Hey, he said casually, almost smug. Diana didn't answer. She didn't need to. She lifted the gun, aiming it straight at his chest. But at the last second, something shifted. The bullet didn't hit his chest. It found his forehead, and the sound that followed, the sickening thud of his body crumpling to the carpet, was the final sound Diana would ever hear before her world went black. The sirens came quickly. The police were there, surrounding her, their hands cold and forceful as they cuffed her. The lights in the interrogation room were fluorescent, buzzing loudly above her head, making her feel like she was drowning in a sea of her own mistakes. Her hands were cuffed in front of her, red and trembling. She didn't ask for a lawyer. She didn't say anything at first. She just stared at the blood on her jeans, the blood that was now a permanent mark on her life. "You didn't mean to," the detective asked sharply, his voice cutting through the thick silence. "You left the door unlocked, had a loaded firearm, waited in your car while he entered, and then re-entered the room with the weapon. Does that sound premeditated to you?" Diana opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She remembered the blast. The thud. The lifeless way Trevor had fallen to the floor, like he was never real to begin with. They took her to the hospital first. She was shaking too violently to be booked. The doctors diagnosed her with acute shock, but shock didn't stop a murder charge. The following morning, Diana was formally arrested for first-degree homicide. Her court-appointed attorney, who couldn't have been older than 26, looked at her slowly, as if he couldn't believe the mess he had walked into. "They're going for a conviction, Mrs. Hale," he said. "They found the revolver. They recovered the security footage. They have evidence you contacted him beforehand. They're painting this as revenge." Diana felt the walls close in around her. She had thought losing Marcus was the worst thing that could happen to her. But now she saw the bottom, and it was far worse than she could have imagined. The weight of her actions, the weight of the choices she had made, came crashing down on her all at once. In jail, things only got worse. One inmate recognized her from the news. They laughed at the woman who killed her lover. They laughed. They threatened her. One even spat in her food tray. Diana asked for protective custody, but no one cared. And just like that, Diana's life had been reduced to nothing more than a cautionary tale. A tale of betrayal, manipulation, and destruction. The cost of her choices had stripped away everything she had. Her family, her home, her future. But it wasn't just her life that was ruined. It was Trevor's. It was Marcus's. And it was the children she had torn apart in the process. As Marcus sipped his drink on that sunlit balcony far away from everything, he knew he had won. He had disappeared, and her world had collapsed. She had nothing left but the wreckage of her own making. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you found this story compelling, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping tales. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, and let us know how you think this story could have ended differently. Stay tuned for more.